Right. Hello, everybody. I'm not sure what episode it is, but today we have an expert interview with Dr. Giles P Croft. Dr. Giles P Croft is a psychology graduate and former NHS surgeon who stepped aside from clinical practice for a decade to explore a number of career paths, including health, informatics. I think that's right. Is it informatics, Giles?
Yeah, made up thing.
Cycling journalism, public speaking, and high street retail with his wife. He is now back in the healing profession, tackling the root causes of chronic mental stress and many of its harmful effects by helping clients reconnect with their natural inbuilt state of health and happiness. He works and lives in the Brecon Beacons National Park with his wife and 7-year-old daughter. Now, we're quite excited to have Dr. Giles on here because he's a real doctor.
Yeah, I haven't been struck off yet.
No. So Giles, we here you've seen our group and you've been part of our group and you've participated, which is great. And you have a very similar approach in with sort of a 3 principles grounding. We don't really like to say 3 principles because to most people it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And it's useless to them. So in a nutshell,
yeah,
your clients and stress and anxiety and other mental conditions that are caused by fundamentally stress. How do you see it? What's your take on that?
Well, I think I've been looking through the group, and there seems to be a bit of a sort of a common theme, and there's people saying, I'm really struggling to sleep, which I don't think there's a human being on planet Earth who's never been through the experience of not being able to sleep at one time or another. So it's a very common thing, there's a common theme, which is that when we're suffering from insomnia, we're lying there and there's a whole load of mental activity going on. I mean, unless we've necked half a gallon of caffeine before we go to bed, which I hope that nobody's doing. And obviously it's important to exclude physiological causes, and I'm no expert in that, I must say. But when push comes to shove, we're lying there. We've got a busy mind. That's what's keeping us awake. And my daughter's just gone to bed in the room next door, and she's got no concept of time whatsoever, and so she might knock on the door, hopefully she won't, and say, Dad, I can't get to sleep. And it's, Dad, I can't get to sleep because I can't stop thinking about tomorrow and how exciting it's going to be. Or, Dad, I can't get to sleep because I can't stop thinking about this. So it's always where sleep's concerned, it's always that naughty little busy mind that keeps us awake. And it's very tempting to sort of delve into the content of what that naughty little mind is coming up with, and somehow put the cause of our insomnia on whatever it is that's inside those thoughts. So it's like, I'm really worried about work. I'm really worried about work. So yeah, it's work that's keeping me awake. How can work be keeping you awake when you're lying in bed and you're not anywhere near it? No, it's you're thinking about work that's keeping you awake. And I can't stop thinking about that thing that happened yesterday. That's what's keeping me awake. And so we put it on to the thing that happened yesterday. And again, that's not possible, because it's literally, it's what you're thinking about what happened yesterday that's keeping you awake. And so the work that I do is to really get a much better appreciation of not the content of thought, because that's just a left brain just jibber jabbering away trying to make sense of the world. None of it's true at all. And it's to get a deeper appreciation for the nature of thought, for what's actually going on in any given moment. Because I've just, I've seen for myself and with my clients that when we get a deeper appreciation for almost like the mechanics of how life works, the mechanics of how we experience life, how we're experiencing life moment to moment to moment. It just takes all the pressure out of it. Takes all the pressure out of it. You know, when we see that it's not work that's stressing us out, it's how we're thinking about work that's stressing us out, then that's such an important realization to have in your life, because that's a total game changer, you know, because thought comes and goes, and you know, we're always getting different perspectives on things, and it's not solid, and you can't put it in a box, and it's just it you know, if we leave it alone, it just flushes itself through. So yeah, all the work I do, you know, whether it's with, and I have had a couple of clients who've been having trouble sleeping, and they, you know, once they had some insights around the nature of thought, just everything changed. So yeah, I don't know how much of a nutshell that was.
That's really brilliant. And the way you said, you mentioned the content of thought, and I know, like, you know, it was a brilliant example that your daughter might come in because she's going to be thinking about this, or too excited about this, or worried, you know, have some sort of thinking going on about it. But when we get tired, or when something's going on for us in our heads, and we're anxious or stressed, or something's keeping us awake, we really go into that content, and it just keeps going. Yeah, I think that's brilliant.
I mean, we all do it. It's human. There's nothing wrong with it. There's, you know, it's not like there's anything wrong with us. As far as I can see, like, literally, that is the human condition. You know, we're either in life or we're in our heads, and we sort of bing bong between the two. And it's just the fact that we don't notice that we're in our heads, and we entertain that thinking. We give it life. We take it seriously. We think it's true, and we try and fix it. It's a fool's errand. It's never going to happen. And you know, this happens to me all the time. I'll tell you when it happens to me. It usually happens when just when I'm getting ready for bed, and I'll be like getting into my pajamas, and there's a bit of my brain that's going over the day, and making an assessment of all the things I haven't done that day. All the things on my to-do list I never got ticked off, and I'll feel the pressure. I'll feel the stress of that thinking. You know, that has a feeling to it, and I've just become a lot more attuned to what those feelings are telling me. And those feelings aren't telling me anything about my to-do list, because they don't know anything about my to-do list. All they're telling me is that I'm about to get into bed with some really stressful thought going on. It's like, oh man, there, I fell for it again. And like, when I've got that thought going, it totally seems real. It's like, no, I've absolutely got to think about my to-do list. It's like, what the hell am I going to do with my to-do list in bed? It's time for sleep. I've just become a lot more attuned to those feelings now, and just kind of like let it go.
Sorry, Giles, and thank you for coming on. And I love what you've said so far. One of the big things we all know is what you've just said, and that's the knowing that we have about it. It's the creation of thought that we're trying to get a handle on, and we blame everything else but the thought itself. A lot of people will then say straight off, yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
How do I stop it?
Yeah.
And it depends on the individual and the rapport you've had with them, how much you've seen them, and it's very tempting to then go into, well, it's just thought, you just let it go. And I know when I was at my worst, before I had this understanding and this knowing, I mean, I actually kept myself awake for 5 days and 4 nights in one go without any sleep at all. And I don't care whatever drugs you've ever tried in your life, there's nothing as weird as that. But if someone had said to me at that point, when I was not in a good state, when I wasn't thinking correctly anyway, I was in a real negative spiral, and just said that to me, I don't think I would have listened. Have you come across that with people that you've been talking to, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, of course. And, you know, it's everybody's different, and everybody has had different experiences and seen different things. And yeah, there's absolutely no, I mean, some, you know, people might be watching this now going, oh my God, I've heard all this before. Of course it's my thought that's keeping me awake. I know that. Yeah. What am I supposed to do about it? And I mean, I always, what I've seen kind of deeper and deeper as time has gone by is that, like, in any moment, we're always and only doing what makes sense to us. Like, we can't be doing anything else. We've got to be doing what makes sense. If it didn't make sense to us, we wouldn't do it. It's as simple as that. So we go for a long time, and it makes sense for us to delve into the content of our thinking, because it really looks like that's the answer. It really looks like if we can just work a little bit harder at it. I mean, here's an example. I was on a training course, and it was like business related, and I had a problem with my business that I wanted to fix, and it's a problem that I'd been ruminating over literally for months. It's like, I just need to get this. I can't, you know, it felt like that I had to either do this one thing or do this other thing. So I had some coaching on it, and it seemed that everybody else couldn't see the answer apart from me. And I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about it. And I was staying over at a friend's house, and it woke me up early. And it was the first thought that came into my head, you know, because I'd really pinned a lot of hope on sort of going on this training course for sorting this problem out. And so I was lying there on an inflatable mattress in their lounge and woken up at 5 a.m. And the answer, honestly, you know, you get almost like that tip of the tongue thing. You know, it was like, oh God, I'm so close. And everyone else seemed like they could see it, and I couldn't. And I lay there for about an hour, and it really, really, really looked like thinking harder about it. You know, that's what made sense to me in that moment. It's like, I'm so close to the answer here. I just need to put a bit more effort in. I just need to think about it more. And I lay there for an hour, and I just felt worse and worse and worse and worse. And then again, I just caught myself. It took a whole hour. And I caught myself. It's like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I've got the feelings here telling me that I'm off track. Got the feelings here telling me that this isn't the way, Giles. You're not going to think your way out of this problem. And I let it go. And every time I started thinking about it again, it's like, no, it's not going to work. Stop it. Just leave it. And I'd let it go. I got in the shower. I got in the shower 10 minutes later. In the shower, boom, there's the answer.
Classic.
So it makes sense for it. You know, we will entertain our thinking for as long as it makes sense for us to do that. Now, in terms of the how and the what do we do? Well, what I've seen is that there's nothing to do. There's nothing to do, but what we say, you know, look in this direction. You know, and the very fact that you are watching or listening to this interview means that there's something there that's kind of like attracted you to it. And that's enough. That really is enough. You know, and you take away this conversation, you don't try and figure it out. It's not going to make any sense to you, because that's not how it works. That's a left brain, and the left brain isn't going to get it, because the left brain likes to know answers, and there aren't answers. So you take it away, and then one day you're doing nothing. You've not got much on your mind, and it's like, oh, that's what they were talking. Yeah, I can see that those feelings that I've got, that they're coming from my thinking. I'd not really seen that before. And you have this kind of this felt experience of it. You get like it's like a little software update.
So Giles, most people,
Yeah,
from what I've seen, they go looking for the answers in the content. And if it's not the content they know, it's the content out there and it's more information. People are
yeah,
always looking for more information. So
yeah,
how do you deal with that when people haven't seen what you're talking about before? They
yeah.
haven't seen the way that things work and sort of had an embodied understanding. And because from what I've seen, it's the embodied understanding automatically changes your behavior, and what makes sense to you, you just don't do what doesn't make
Absolutely.
sense.
Yeah. So I think I've got little that when I work with people, whether that's in workshops or like online courses or one-to-one, I sort of take people through 4 steps. And the first step is I call foundations, because we're so used to thinking that we know the way that stuff works, that if change is going to happen, then that's on me. That's something that I have to do. That responsibility sits on my shoulders. Why wouldn't it? Nobody's ever told me otherwise. So again, it's all about what makes sense. So for as long as it makes sense that it's our job to do all the changing, then yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to go looking for answers in books and workshops and stuff like that, and we're going to kind of like reinforce that idea that change is hard work. Yeah,
It's
if
a
I,
heavy burden, isn't it?
it is, yeah, it's like if I want to make this change, I've got to, I'm gonna have to commit like an hour a day or something to doing this thing that someone's told me to do or something like that. And what I've seen is it's totally the opposite of that. That it's that searching for something to do to force a change that's actually getting in the way of change happening. It's actually getting in the way. Change happens by insight. Change happens by getting a completely fresh perspective on it. And I think, to your listeners and your watchers, all I would say is, well, it's just look back on your life. Look back on your life at big changes that have happened in your life, of things that maybe you thought one way about something, and then you had a change of heart or a change of perspective, and you actually see that situation really very differently now.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and just get quiet and just think back to that, and was that anything that you did? And I think chances are it's not going to be anything that you've done. It's going to be something that's given you a different perspective. It might have been something that looked really bad initially, like losing a job or something. And you lose a job, and at the time when it happens, it's like the worst thing ever. You can't imagine. And then about however long later, you look back on it and you go, man, that was the best thing that could have ever happened. Because you've got this completely different perspective on it. You're actually viewing life through a completely different lens, and that's how change works.
And I would certainly concur with that, because when I was going through my PTSD, anxiety, stress, and so on, all the rest of that, I said it was a living hell. It was the darkest time of my life. And then years after coming out of that, and personal development and doing lots of learning around psychology, because you had to think your way out of it, I actually said to people it was, in a perverse and sick way, the best thing that ever happened to me, because it gave me a passion and a purpose moving forward. So yeah, you couldn't get more opposites between how I thought about it to start with, to the point where I was trying to check out, to the point where I was thankful of it having happened, because it gave me an insight and a direction and a purpose and a passion. So I
think that change doesn't tend to occur when everything's just about okay, but maybe a bit meh. Change occurs when we hit rock bottom. Change occurs when we go, enough, I've had enough of this. And so many times, the clients who come to me, they've tried everything else and it's not worked. And that's what's brought them to me. And it's from that point, you know, and they go, oh, I'm a lost cause and nothing's going to work for me. And I've tried this and I've tried that. I don't know. There was just something on your website that sounded a bit different. So I'm going to give it a go. And I'm just like, get in, you know, this is perfect. You're in the perfect place. You're backed into a corner. You can't see a way out at all. And that's exactly where you want to be, because that's where change happens.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know for me, my biggest change and my biggest insight was probably the first one. It was nothing to do with me. It just happened. There was no effort involved. It just happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine happened with my daughter. I was, she'd lost a ballet shoe, which was a sort of a code red emergency in our house, especially because she had ballet later on in that day and I was going to be taking her to it. And we turned the house upside down, couldn't find it. She'd given up. I'd given up. And eventually it turned up. It was like tucked up for some reason. It was tucked underneath the coffee table in my office. And I got really excited that I'd found it. And so it was the most normal of domestic situations you could possibly imagine. And I got really excited thinking, I'm going to earn some major daddy points here. She was 5 at the time. And I went into her room and she was sat on the floor playing with her Duplo. And I did a big kind of like got down at her level and I did a big reveal. And I said, oh, look what daddy found. And she wasn't bothered. She wasn't bothered.
No.
And in that moment, like I had this huge rush of feelings. I felt a bit angry. I felt disappointed. I thought, you know, what's the point? Why do I do this? And, you know, like a whole storm of really strong emotions. And in the past, I'd have maybe, you know, been sarcastic, which is never helpful with a 5-year-old because they don't get it, or I might have given her a little bit of a lecture about gratitude. You know, again, it would have just gone completely over her head, or just, you know, begin the conditioning. Oh, I must say this when daddy says this to keep daddy happy. And oh god, you know, there's 6 months in the psychiatrist's couch, isn't it? And or I might have like bitten my tongue and thought, oh man, that didn't go how I wanted. What? And I'd have been, again, there'd have been a lot of mental activity around it. I was in the house on my own with her at this point, and I'd have probably gone and done some housework or something, and I'd have been thinking about, you know, maybe I should be a bit more, you know, what it's like, yeah, am I expecting to? There'd have been a lot of this going on. There'd have been a lot of that going on. Now this time, after I'd been watching little conversations like this, you know, reading a couple of books about it, getting it on an intellectual level, going, oh my god, yeah, that makes total sense. Of course it's thought. Well, it was only after that this situation happened. Exactly the same. This huge rush of feelings just came up, and then completely out of the blue, without me doing a thing, like a punch to the side of the head, it dawned on me. It's like, oh my word, those feelings have got nothing to do with my daughter and her behavior. 100% of those feelings are coming from inside of me. And in that moment, before I could do anything or process or anything, my mind just went completely silent. I think for the first time in my life, I was just stood there absolutely dumbstruck. I can't tell you how long it lasted for, maybe 0.5 of a second, maybe half an hour, I don't know, but I was just stood there with a gormless expression on my face with this completely silent mind. And I remember the first thing that came into that silent mind was, bloody hell, this is weird. What am I supposed to do now? And then after that came followed swiftly was another insight, which was to truly understand my daughter and her reaction. And it was to see that she gets it. She lives in the present moment. She knows that nothing else matters because that's all there is. She didn't care that the ballet shoe was lost at all. She'd let go of that. It was only me with my clever adult mind that carried on thinking about it. And she didn't care about what was going to happen in the future because she knew that Daddy would sort it out. And even if I didn't, there would be, it's not something that that's a concept that she entertains at all. No, she when I went in there and showed her that ballet shoe, the only thing on her mind is, why isn't Daddy congratulating me on this amazing Duplo creation that I've made? Why is he still banging on about my ballet shoe?
She'd moved on.
Yeah, exactly. And from that silent mind, with none of the static on the line, with none of the mental noise getting in the way of it, I was able to see that. And that's what happens. That's what happens when we stop entertaining all of that jibber jabber in our minds, because it's completely made up. It's a left hemisphere of our brains trying to make sense of the data that it's getting. That's all it is.
Oh yeah, but something. Sorry, I'm going to jump in here. Something I realised is that if your left brain doesn't actually understand what's going on, it's going to keep going forever.
Yeah.
If it thinks it can solve, if it knows it can't solve it, and knows that the best way to sort this problem out, so it's thinking out, is just to back away, leave it alone, then it does do it.
Yeah, put it on the back burner, as Richard Carlson used to say. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it really does. It's very. They've done a whole load of studies. They did a whole load of studies with split brain patients, where they would tell the right side something and then ask the left side for an explanation, and it would literally just make stuff up. It's got no basis in reality at all.
I love that insight. It's amazing how sometimes it's the smallest of things that actually drive it home. Even though you've done all your intellect and all your ego, and you're obviously an intelligent man, you don't get to become a doctor and a surgeon unless you've got a reasonable amount of intelligence. So have you found it hard to let go of that intelligence at any point in your journey? Because intellect, obviously a lot of surgeons I work with in hospitals, they have a certain air about them. To be a surgeon means you have to behave a particular or certain way. And they are very, very defined rules. They may be unspoken sometimes, but they are definitely there. And I just wondered, because you never struck me from the first time I spoke to you to the times I've seen you since, you never struck me as a surgeon type. I don't know if that's because you've made that change across, but did you ever see yourself as conforming and fitting into that environment?
I absolutely did, and I think I pretty much had to. I had to. I was a very, very different person when I was doing surgery. Yeah, it's a long time since I left now, so I've had practically 20 years of chilling out. But yeah, no, when I was in that environment, because it's incredibly competitive and it's incredibly demanding. You can't show any weakness whatsoever. And so, I mean, this was, maybe in the bad old days, I don't know, things may have changed, but I doubt it. Yeah. And here's a case in point. When I first met my wife, I'd just left surgery. And she just didn't. We didn't click at all. She didn't like me in the slightest. And it was only many years later when we met again, and she was like, "You're just like a completely different person." So, and I had a real thing about my title. When I left medicine and I was doing doing like non-clinical stuff. And meeting new people and things like that, the identity was really important, and it was like, it would be how I'd introduce myself immediately. It would be like, well, I used to be a surgeon. And then after a while, as I started doing more and more different things, and it just became completely irrelevant, I started playing a game of, right, I'm going to see how long I can go before anyone finds out that I used to be a surgeon. So it was a very, very gradual process. And I think, and then, coming across the three principles that we talk about, this inside out understanding, and just seeing just how really it's all created by left brain. It's all it's all, you know, identity and everything is in there, and it's all made up. It's all made up. So it just, you know, it became a lot easier to let go of that stuff.
Oh, I just kind of got what you meant by left brain, because the left brain loves to divide things up.
Yeah, it's its
And
job.
there is no real, in reality, division between
No.
anything.
No, so our right hemisphere is kind of like scanning the big picture, the like the oneness, if you like, that massive rush of data, that sea of energy that we're part of. But that's useless to, you know, make cups of tea, crossroads, and write emails. So the left hemisphere has to find edges everywhere and creates objects, and that's really useful. That's really useful. It's useful up to the point where we use it for those purposes. It's less useful when we are trying to find peace of mind in a busy world, because we've become we've gone so far over to the left side. I mean, there's a brilliant book called The Master and His Emissary by I'm just looking at Ian McGilchrist. It's a massive book, but it's just a beautiful description of the left and the right brain, and how just as a society we've moved to this very mechanistic, sharp-edged categories. That we're inhabiting the map of reality, thinking that the map is reality when it's not. The map is not the territory. You know, I used to read stuff like that in
from NLP.
And what's he? Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and you go, the map is not the territory, and I'd go, yeah, that makes sense. And now I totally see it. It's like, no, really. It's like the left brain is just creating a map for each one of us of, you know, and saying, hey, Giles, this is reality. That's not reality. That's a whole load of made up stuff in my head based on my conditioning and my experiences so far in life, but it's got nothing to do with reality. It's just it's a facsimile of reality. So, and the more we see that, just the easier life becomes, really. Just don't take it so seriously. And sleep better.
Yeah, it's right. You sort of covered something that I was going to ask, and that is, in the 25 years that I've sort of been studying and learning as much as I could about stress and anxiety and depression, how it impacts, and obviously working a lot with large companies and their health and well-being structures and that sort of thing. I was going to ask whether or not you had any thoughts on why it seems to be such, and I hate to use the word pandemic, but all I hear and see these days is how young people have been affected. And is there anything that you've come across in your experience, because I know it's your specialist area of stress and anxiety, but I don't tend to do with the younger adults or teenagers. I don't know if you've had much to do with them, or what your thoughts would be on that, or what parents could possibly do to try and help their children steer them. I know there's been a couple of questions about that in the group, or people mention that. Not many, but just a couple.
It's funny. It's almost like we've got the way I see it is that we've got the mirror of what's going on for us individually. So when we were talking about, well, you kind of hit rock bottom before you start to question, hang on a minute, and I think that that's happening I'm hopeful that that's happening at the fact that we're having this conversation, even, to me, suggests that that's happening at a societal level too, in that more and more people are going, yeah, but what? Come on now, we're living in the 21st century. We've got all the information. I mean, we've got literally all the information. There is no stone left unturned. Our quality of life compared to even 50 years ago is through the roof. If you're watching this, you've got an internet connection. Well, that's something that's completely new. And yet everyone's anxious and depressed. It just doesn't make sense. It just does not make sense. So when we start getting curious about that, and the kids, look, there's one cause There's one cause and there's one solution, and the cause is the mistaken belief that our feelings are coming from anywhere but thought. That's the cause of all human problems.
Yeah.
That we think our feelings are coming from, that we attach our feelings to something else. As soon as we do that, we're at the mercy of that something else. We're at the mercy of our job. We're at the mercy of our relationship. We're at the mercy of our kids. If it's our kids, they're at the mercy of Instagram, or that they're at the mercy of what someone else thinks. And so the solution is to gently, lovingly understand, with real compassion, because it's totally innocent, nobody's told us, is to just gently correct that misunderstanding, is to show it for the illusion that it is. It's a very, very good illusion, and it's there for a good reason. It's like it's 40-odd thousand year old software that stopped us from getting eaten from saber-toothed tigers. It's just a bit redundant now, and it's time for us to have a societal software upgrade. Thanks very much. And I honestly, I strongly believe, if a crusty old orthopedic surgeon like me can get in touch with this, then there's hope for anyone, really. And it's the same with kids. Now, I think the most important thing with kids is we know that kids mimic parents. They learn from watching others. Okay. Yeah. And so the most important thing for parents is to see this for themselves, is to know thyself. Because there's no point preaching to a child about how to be if you're not being that way yourself. I had an example again with my daughter the other day. She's got 2 toothbrushes, one that was sent home from school that's plastic, and one that we got her that's bamboo. And I used to tease her of an evening and say, what are we doing this evening? Are we saving the planet, or are we destroying the planet? Saving the planet. And I thought that was funny. I thought I was being clever, And then, unbeknownst to me, to my wife, my daughter said one evening, she said, Daddy's always saying about which toothbrush should I use, but Daddy uses a plastic toothbrush. And I was just like, if that isn't the best description, there was no way I was going to get my daughter to do that if I didn't do it myself. So when it comes to this understanding, sure, there's plenty of books out there that are aimed at kids, but if you just give a kid a book and say, here, you're not seeing it right, you're behaving badly, read this book and everything will be better, you're on a hiding to nothing. You've got to see it for yourself first and live from that. If a child sees you not at the mercy of your own feelings because you've had some insights around where your feelings are coming from, and you see that 100% of your feelings are coming from inside of you and not from the situations you're in, well, they're going to see that, and that's what they're going to learn.
I totally agree. And they mimic almost everything, even the stuff we don't think that they've picked up on. Sorry, Joseph, were you going to say something?
Yeah, well, it's something that because my memory is pretty good. And I remember when I was younger, I knew I didn't know very much. So I knew the adults doing things. They must know something I don't know, so I'll just do what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because there must be a good reason for it, even though quite often there isn't. They're as misguided as we are,
knew.
or more so.
That's another really important realization to have in your life, isn't it? Everybody is winging it.
Totally.
Everybody, without exception, making it up as they go along.
Gosh, yeah, totally random. Giles, I don't know why this question popped into mind. Has it made you a nicer person?
Yeah, I think I'm. You'd have to ask my wife, but I think I'm a bit softer. I don't judge anyone for any of their behavior, because I know what's going on for them. I know that behavior is a function of how well we are seeing how life works. If we're very much in tune with where our feelings are coming from inside of us, and we're not so much in that left brain. We're not up in judgment and analysis, and we've, you know, we talk about having sort of an aperture, and our aperture is nice and open, and we're just going with the flow of life. Then we know that that's when we get our good ideas, and that's when we behave in a really loving way to other people and everything. We've got the experience ourselves, and we know that when we're in a low mood, we behave like idiots. You know, we send emails that we regret and text messages that we regret, and we yell at people, you know, every time. And I'm no saint, you know, I still yell at my daughter, but as soon as I've done it, I'm like, what are you doing, you idiot? You know, you were in a low mood and you opened your mouth. You should take a time out. You know, time outs aren't for kids, are they? Time outs are for parents. I should have taken myself into another room and calmed down, you know, let my aperture open again, settle down out of my thinking of all things have to be the particular way, and I'd have had a much better reaction. So when you've seen that for yourself, you just see it in everyone else. So you're a lot more forgiving of other people, because everyone's just doing the best they can. Everyone is absolutely doing what makes sense to them in any given moment, based on their understanding of how life works and where their experience is coming from. So yeah, I guess.
Giles, do you think people have to challenge their morals, values, or beliefs to make this change?
Their own?
Yeah.
Yeah, so morals, values, and beliefs, and challenge them. I think we could quite easily get into a bit of a doing there. We could quite easily get into a doing. You know, back when I did my kind of like my standard personal development odyssey about 15 years ago, and I was, you know, going to all these workshops and stuff, there was a lot of that. Let's write down your beliefs and let's see if they're really true. So that's, you know, that's one thing, but it's still content of thought. We're still in content of thought there, and the need for that, the need to do that is simply removed when you go further upstream and you look at the nature of thought, and you see that it's all made up. That it's all just the activity of a left brain trying to make sense of the world, and then you just find yourself holding things, you know, a lot more lightly. Now, that's not to say that I'm just floating around in this amoral, amorphous mess of not having any values. Of course I do. Again, you know, I'm human, and yeah, you know, I've got a whole load of conditioning from my childhood that I'm carrying around with me, and I've got a certain biology that I'm carrying around with me. The key, I think, is to see the role that plays, and to see that in any given moment that biology and that conditioning, there's only one way that can show up, and that's in thought. You know, it kind of like wipes the slate clean, really, when you see that 100% of your experience is actually thought. Then that puts an entirely different spin on it. So the need to go delving around into values and beliefs and stuff, it just becomes a bit redundant. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense.
Total sense. In fact, I had to work through being really annoyed that I had to do all this learning to learn psychology, how the brain's working, why am I feeling like this, how do I get over it? And I used to comment on how wonderful it was I got a chance to rebuild myself from the ground up, because I could challenge my core programming, my secondary programming. Where did all those come from? I can be the man that I want to be. It's a lot of bloody hard work.
It is. It is.
Going on.
It really is.
And I had have had an insight. I'm thinking, wow, I wouldn't have wasted all that time and effort doing that. But in doing that, it gave me some understanding and knowledge. And the one thing that I've always said has helped me have empathy was having gone through it. Because prior to that, I was a typical man's man, rugby player, bouncer, doorman. You know, men had to be big and strong, have no emotion, have the answers to everything, you know. Stab us and we don't bleed, and even if we do, we'll carry on and fight you anyway.
If you didn't have big biceps, you weren't a real man. Yeah, that kind
of
thing. And drink 10 pints, you know, that kind of thing.
And I always said it was a protector thing. It meant that I could put right the injustices. So, in a restaurant late in the morning when you might have a table of drunk guys all effing and jeffing, you could go over and say, "Excuse me, gentlemen, do you mind keeping your language down, please? There are people trying to eat here," knowing that none of them would have the nerve to go do one because you were too big to play with. So I was being a bully really with it and trying to say that I was this avenger. It's funny the thinking that goes on, isn't it? But would have been much easier knowing.
It's great though, because like all of that is brought into the present moment. That's what I love about this, is that there's people used to ask me, because I spoke about career change for over a decade at conferences before I even came across the principles, and people used to ask me, do you regret? Surely you regret leaving medicine, all that training and everything. And I couldn't at the time, I couldn't put it into words, but all I could come up with was like, no, I don't regret a single instant, because all of that has made me who I am today. I just wouldn't be the person I am if I hadn't been through all of that. And that's what's beautiful about this, is that however wide our aperture, however much of life's flow we're letting through, it's still got our own particular flavor. There's still that uniqueness to us, which is really beautiful. We've all got gifts to offer. Every single person on this planet has got gifts that nobody else has got, that are totally unique to them because of that conditioning and that biology. And when you see that, and in tandem with letting go of all of the analysis and the judgment and it needing to mean anything and it being true, and then that's when you really start to have fun playing the game of life, because it's like, come on then, let's rock this place. let's be the truest expression of myself that I can possibly be, without really needing to get anything out of that, or having to hold on to tightly onto any particular outcomes, because that your well-being doesn't come from the things that you do and the way that people think about you and how many likes you get on Facebook. That your well-being is what you are. It's there all the time, and it's only your thinking that's going to get in the way of it.
So that kind of lets you do stuff, I guess, without, you can do stuff and go for stuff that, might be a huge goal or might be a small goal, and you're going to be fine if you get it or not. It kind
absolutely
of
takes the pressure on.
But we've got about 5-10 minutes left. Before we speak about anything else, I really wanted to get into Giles has got on his website a mini course.
It's like
introduction to what you've been talking about today, and I just wondered if you talk a little bit on that, because that looks really useful to people, and it's free.
This you might have got to this point in this conversation and gone and kind of like got a sense that of what we're talking about, but your brain's going, does not compute, and that's fine. That's completely normal, and it's completely natural. And like I said earlier, all you have to do, the only thing, is show up and look in this direction. So I've created a course. It's made out of clips of Wellbeing Wednesdays. I've been running Wellbeing Wednesdays for over a year now. There's something like 20 odd episodes, and they're looking at different aspects of life and work and relationships and all sorts of things from this perspective. And so I've pulled them together into a course that really does lead you very gently through in like nice little bite-sized chunks. They're all short videos between 3 minutes, and I think the longest one's about 12 minutes, in these 4 sort of steps that I think we all go through. And I've mentioned the first one already. It's foundations. It's looking at the way that change actually occurs, rather than the way that we've been taught that it occurs. So it's kind of like that's a sort of a little gentle loving shake of there's a different way and you're just not seeing it, and that's fine, you know. And it's just like opening people up to the possibility that there's a different way. And then the next module is mechanics, and that's where we go into a bit of the neuroscience about it and how the brain works and how we're experiencing, and where all this business about where our feelings come from and everything like that, and looking at the present moment and what the present moment is and what it isn't and stuff like that. And then the next module is implications, which is sort of taking that understanding of the mechanics of how we work and running with it and going, okay, well, if that's the case, what does it mean for situation A, B, and C? You know, and we look at things like relationships, and we look at things like work, and we look at things like stress and stuff like that. And then the final module I've called True Nature, which is going a bit deeper again and looking at this whole identity piece that we touched on a bit earlier when we were talking about, you know, that surgical ego and where it came from and how we hold on to it and all the different identities that we wear. Because I think it's for me, certainly the experience I've had is that it's you kind of need a bit of an understanding of the mechanics and the implications before you start delving around in these quite deep philosophical questions like, you know, who am I and what am I and what am I here for and stuff like that. So it's leading people gently through, and I've yeah, you know, I've made it free because if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I know that there's something out there that's not dependent on me, that I just want as many people as possible to I don't want any barriers to people accessing this understanding, because it's very simple. It's our next stage of evolution as human beings, and the more people who know about it, the better, because it's going to make the world a better place. So it's my gift to the world, if you like.
So I mean, that's fantastic, and we'll put up the link to that on the replay of this video, so everybody can just access that really easily.
Yeah, no worries.
And see your website. Now, one other burning question: do you see in 100 or 200 or however long it takes for people to really start getting this, and it become mainstream as part of psychology? Normally, it probably will get taught in schools eventually, I imagine. Because it's that
being taught in schools.
It is being taught
as a core module.
Yeah.
You know, 5 years old, this is what you learn, and you're going to have a refresher each year just so you don't forget, because it's easy to forget. How do you see the world changing with people? You know, obviously people sleeping better, that's one. But what else do you see?
Well, you know, there was a time when we thought that the earth was flat, and there was a time that we thought that the sun went round. Hang on, which way is it? Yeah, the sun still is such a good illusion. It still looks like the sun rises and sets, but it doesn't, people. But there was a time when we believed that, and so all of our behaviour was based on that. There was a time when we didn't understand germs. And if I sent you back a couple of 100 years with your understanding of germ theory and said to you, Neil, Joe, I'm going to put you in a market square, and you've got to convince people that illnesses are caused by tiny invisible monsters in the air that they're breathing in, or that get inside them when they touch something, they'd lock you up and throw away the key.
Yeah, I'd be putting.
And
and they throw tomatoes at me probably and like whip me.
Yeah, or burn you, you know, burn you. Yeah. So and I very much see we're in that same stage with psychology now. That it's like as the years go by, there's more and more and more and more theories about psychology and treatments about psychology and diagnoses around psychology as well. You know, like let's not get started on the DSM-5 manual and all the new illnesses. You know, post-COVID traumatic stress something or other is apparently that's a thing now. You know, it's like well how about it's a very normal, natural, understandable reaction to misunderstanding where your experience is coming from. How about that? How about we start there? You know, how about we correct that? So Yeah, I think honestly, in however many years it is, let's say 200 years, mind you, this has been being said for thousands of years. Let's put it this way, you know. I mean,
Yes.
you only have to look at Buddhism. You know, the Buddha talked this way about there not being a self, and that life is thought created. All of the, you know, you can
Yep.
sit down and you can read the Bible. You can sit down and read the Bible, and you'll see this message.
Yeah,
There,
some stuff in Hinduism,
yeah,
Advaita, Vedanta is very similar in some
exactly.
ways.
So who knows? But like I say, you know, maybe we have to reach rock bottom before we start to question the validity of, you know, if it gets to the point where every single one of us has got some kind of mental health disorder diagnosis, before we turn around and go, hang on a minute, this can't be right. Well, then maybe this groundswell of understanding, you know, the three of us are here having this conversation, will become such that it will become more mainstream. So we remain hopeful.
Yeah, I was going to say it's interesting to get your view on that one, because it is one of the questions I've asked myself. You know, how quickly can this catch on? What's stopping it catch on? And that thing about you have to hit rock bottom. I wonder if society has to hit rock bottom before it starts to look elsewhere.
I hope
I
not,
see
Neil.
greed.
I haven't got enough leather bondage gear and hair gel to wear for that kind of thing. Yeah, Mad Max.
Yeah, have you seen The Road? Let's not go there.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, let's hope we don't have to go to Sodom and Gomorrah to actually appreciate what life is, and that we're causing it all ourselves. Giles, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much. When Joseph said he'd managed to chat to you and say that you're going to come on, and I think I'd like to have you on again at some point. So
Sure.
I hope that's agreeable with yourself.
Yeah, no, it's lovely having a chat with you. Thanks for inviting me on, and thanks for setting up the group, because you know it's a popular group, isn't it? And there's a lot of, it's like sleep's one of the first things. There's something about the quiet and the dark that that gets it going.
Yeah.
I've got a little meditation. I keep saying I'm going to put it in the group, and I haven't. And I'll do that after I get off the call now. Okay, which just kind of like talks people through. It's a little guided visualization about going deep down in the water to see the fishes. So if you have a problem with water, don't listen to it. But if you're fine with that, then it's a helpful. It's what I do when I can't sleep.
To have that. Yeah, no, really great to have
thanks.
that. That's really kind of you, Giles.
Well, thanks for coming on, and it's been great speaking to Giles, and I hope everybody found this useful. So I'm going to say bye-bye for now.
Thank you, Giles. I hope everybody enjoys it. If they have any questions, please post them. Giles is part of the group. He's not just some weirdo that's come and joined us for the night. You know, he's part of the community. He's here because he wants to help. Yeah. So I just hope that people, you know, so just one person hears something, and that's brilliant for me. But thank you, Giles, from the heart. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. Thanks for having me on. And if you know anyone wants to check out my website, it's gilespcroft.com, and everything you want is there.
No, we'll make sure all those go up as well underneath the post. Yeah, that's fantastic. Have a great evening, Giles.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Take care. Oh.